The following is a conversation with David Sinclair. He is a professor in the Department of Genetics at Harvard and co-director of the Paul F. Glenn Center for the Biology of Aging at Harvard Medical School. He's the author of the book Lifespan and co-founder of several biotech companies. He works on turning age into an engineering problem and solving it, driven by a vision of a world where billions of people can live much longer and much healthier lives.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Justin G. Pluto podcast summary and recap. Thank you very much for tuning in. First and foremost, I got to give a shout out to podcastnotes.org. Now, they're not a sponsor or anything like that, but they really make making these videos a whole lot easier, especially when they've taken notes on a podcast that I'm particularly interested in, because typically I'll watch a podcast, I'll take notes myself of the key takeaways and things that stand out and bullet points that I want to touch on in this video. But some of the shows that I want to do a video on, Podcast Notes already has the bullet points for. So like for this one today, for example, I was able to take a lot of the stuff from Podcast Notes that really are the key takeaways to this conversation that we're going to jump into. But who has not heard of Lex Fridman? I love Lex. He is such a genuine, like heartfelt, loving guy. And he truly is just like, he exemplifies the light. You know, he really intentionally puts that out, positivity, and is very conscious of his effect and impact on the world. And I love his character. I love the conversations that he hosts and the conversations that he has been a part of that I've tuned into. Not only are they very fascinating, most of them way over my head. The cat's being annoying on wife's computer. Lol. A lot of the stuff he talks about, though, does go just completely over my head, which is fun because I know that I'm learning something new, trying to grasp onto something, and if I miss it the first time, maybe I'll catch it the next time I'm tuned into it, or become privy to a conversation that's occurring. In this episode of the Lex Fridman Podcast, Lex and guest David Sinclair discuss the determinants of why we age, solving aging, the trend of wearables and tracking health data, artificial intelligence, social perspectives of lifespan and death, and lifestyle factors to improve lifespan. Now, I think maybe this particular conversation fascinates me personally because it's been for a while now that I've talked about, like, I'm going to live to be over 100 years old. And I've been able to, like, confidently claim that for, like, the past year, just because hearing some of these conversations and understanding what types of technology are coming down the wire, what things are going to be made available to us in the very near future, and then I guess ultimately kind of getting a peek behind the curtain to some of the things that are talked about in this conversation over the course of the past year or two. Those are the things that really led me to believe that, like, my longevity and the people in my age group, like, we should probably set our eyes on a little bit longer of lives than like our parents and grandparents, because we will have access to technology that like wasn't even thought about back then. So yeah, let me just get into some of the key points of this conversation. So there is quite a few sections. I've got like 3 pages of notes here. I'm going to go ahead and just read from these bullet points, so bear with me. But there's quite a few very interesting sections within this conversation. But to start it off, it started off in like the artificial intelligence and machine learning realm. Now that's Lex's specialty, so he almost starts most conversations here. He is an MIT engineer, I think. I should look it up to be sure. Let's Google it really quick. Lex Fridman profession. MIT Advanced Vehicle Technology studied large-scale naturalistic driving study of driver behavior and interaction with automation. Oh, that looks like just one study specifically. But I know Lex is just heavily involved in machine learning and artificial intelligence, and apparently specifically in machine learning when it comes to driving. So yeah, like I said, a lot of his conversations kind of start off here. So according to David Sinclair, who is the expert, as you heard Lex say at the beginning of this video, in anti-aging, if you're not using AI in biology right now, you're getting left behind. That was a quote directly from David Sinclair in this conversation. They go on to talk about we live in a time we can leverage data to have the pieces of the life people we can gather using technology beyond just written books. AI makes it possible to bring back people that we love in some way and in essence achieve mortality. So essentially what he's saying is like they talked about being able to recreate personalities with computer and artificial intelligence, and I think originally it was someone like the original technology I think first was like that storybook story of someone like losing a loved one and wanting to like talk to them again, and I think someone was able to achieve that where they used machine learning to come up with a personality for that loved one that they had lost. They go on to talk about how it wasn't like perfect, it wasn't like seamless, it was obviously a machine that this person was communicating with, but they were able to actually achieve it, and the machine learning program was able to actually communicate in some facet as if it were that person that were deceased, which is pretty fascinating. So what use does artificial intelligence have in aging studies? AI can generate biological clocks, predict protein folding, assemble genomes, predict longevity in mice in response to stimuli, and diagnosing a virus. So in this conversation, they go on to talk about David Sinclair's interests in predictions of wearables, so like wearable technology and wearable tracking data. According to David Sinclair, wearables are the intersection of machines and humans with the potential to revolutionize medicine. Another quote from David: "We're living through what's going to be seen as one of the biggest revolutions in human health through the gathering of data about our bodies." Followed by another quote: "Picture a future when you're monitored constantly so you wouldn't have a heart attack. You'd know that was coming." So in this instance, there was a moment in here where he talks about a piece of technology that he himself was wearing, and it was just like a small thing on his chest. It was like some form of heart monitor, and he talked about how you would end up in the hospital for a heart attack before you actually have a heart attack, because this piece of wearable technology is able to warn you essentially of that, which, like, holy shit, that's pretty fascinating. It's feasible that wearables and similar technology will indicate what antibiotic or medication to take, what to eat, etc., and augment physicians who would just need to sign off on the protocol. So essentially, he's saying like it's not out of the realm of possibility for wearable technology just to simply tell you what you should eat, basically tell you what your body needs as far as food, medication, etc., and the physician will just essentially have to read over what recommendation the technology is giving you and sign off on it or make adjustments. They go on to talk about how COVID-19 really accelerated biological, technological, and medical advances. There will be a day doctors use wearable technology to send patients home for monitoring instead of keeping them in the hospital. Again, wearables will revolutionize medicine. It can collect data which can be used to predict sickness and diagnose disease. The goal is to have a world where doctors will be able to take a look at a dashboard of our body, The goal is to have a world where doctors will be able to take a look at a dashboard of our body based on swabs, blood tests, and biosensors and make real-time tailored recommendations. Now, David Sinclair co-founded a company that creates personalized and actionable plans to help people optimize their bodies through nutrition, supplements, and lifestyle. That company is called Inside Tracker. Inside Tracker leverages human data in the way that we're talking about above in optimizing human bodies. They go on to talk about data sharing in biology. Consumer health is going in the direction of the patient having access to better data than the doctor through private lab tests and biotech companies. This section I found pretty fascinating. This section of conversation. Now, this is all about like what type of lifestyle methods can like you and I implement in our own lives to actively slow aging. So I'll read through some of these bullet points. Top causes of aging are apparently broken chromosomes, cell stress, and smoking. Apparently, fasting is one of the oldest ways to improve health. We need to optimize how long and the frequency. Quote from David in this conversation: if there's one thing I can recommend to anybody to slow down aging, it's to skip a meal or two a day. And I personally found this really fascinating. I actually find eating to be a goddamn burden. Unless I'm sharing a meal with my wife or with friends and family, it's like it just gets in the way. Like, I don't want to take the time to cook some food. It's always easier to go out. It costs money. Don't get me wrong. I love cooking, especially when I'm going to share the meal with somebody, especially because my food is fire. But it sucks to have to take the time to cook. And so this was nice to hear in this conversation, where I can use it as not necessarily an excuse, but like a rationale to intermittent fasting and eating just overall less, because I'm doing it to slow the aging process. I need my body to be hungry. This is another thing that David said. Just an aside, David Sinclair is a big fan of one meal a day. The carnivore diet has made Lex feel really good, because Lex has tried the carnivore diet, just eating strictly meat. I'm not sure if he is still on it currently, but I know that he's tried it and he really likes it. And yeah, so when you eat seems to be more important than what you eat, apparently. Data says plant-based foods are better than meat-based foods, according to David. People who live longer tend to eat Mediterranean diets with very little red meat. High meat consumption stimulates mTOR, which I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I think it was mTOR in some way is responsible for some part of the aging process. So high meat consumption apparently stimulates mTOR, which is interesting. Apparently you could potentially take rapamycin to counteract effects of meat. I've heard of rapamycin before, and it was probably from David Sinclair, maybe on Joe Rogan. I'm not entirely sure. I know I've heard of it before, and I think I've heard of people that are actively supplementing it now. Apparently, meat produces immediate health benefits, such as muscle energy, but potentially at the expense of long-term effects. So there are short-term benefits to meat consumption. And I'm thinking maybe I need to get myself some rapamycin so I can stick to my meat consumption and get those benefits of protein and muscle gain and energy. And David says, eat a diet full of leafy greens, avoid spikes in sugar, possibly explore supplementing with resveratrol. There's another one that I've heard of. I know that one for sure. I heard originally from David Sinclair. Again, not exactly sure in what context, but I know it's something you can use that is, I think it has an effect particularly on the aging of cells, but I'm not sure. I'm thinking like telomere length, but you'll have to look it up yourself. Exercise clearly extends longevity. You don't need much exercise to get great benefit, apparently. Exercise aerobically a few times per week, even just 10 minutes, and lift weights a few times a week. Sleep is critical for longevity to avoid premature aging and adverse health outcomes. Sleep quality seems to matter more than quantity, just like the food example. The brain is the center for longevity, so we have to take care of our stress levels and mental health. Data collection methods, just another section of the conversation here. We'll likely start moving away from blood draws for data, according to David. Currently swab and ship to the lab to test hormones, stress levels, blood glucose, and etc. But in the next 10 years, the technology that'll be available will likely be spit on a piece of paper and stick it in a machine for analysis, and potentially you'll have those machines that are testing your spit in your home. And apparently those tests are really easy to produce and are definitely scalable if they can be democratized, according to David, as like have the price reduced. So yeah, but it sounds like over the next 10 years, that's something that David is expecting to start to see pop up into homes. Something that you simply can just spit into a tube or onto a test stick, stick it in for analysis, and you'll get all sorts of data back, likely of like your hormone levels, stress levels, of blood glucose specifically, but I'm sure hopefully there will be a lot more than just that. Realistic goals of lifespan. If you start eating cleaner in your 20s, that has been shown to improve lifespan in animal models. If you are in your 20s currently, like I, aim to reach at least 100 years old. And apparently there's no maximum to the limit of human lifespan, according to David. They wrapped up this conversation on kind of a pretty heavy topic that I found somewhat fascinating. Hopefully I can kind of capture some of the depth of their conversation at this moment. But they talked about death and denial. And they're saying, we seem to draw meaning from life being rooted in our existence. Most of us find it distressing to face our own mortality. All living beings have evolved to want to live and survive. It's possible we evolved to naturally deny aging because we need to use our energy and focus for innovation in life instead of death. And it might be easier to be lazy if you are immortal. That pretty much hopefully captures most of what they talked about in this conversation. Now, as always, I'll encourage you to go ahead and tune into this conversation yourself, because I know that I can't convey everything the way that they did in their conversation, but I try my best. And hopefully, if you just simply don't have the time to go listen to their almost 2-hour conversation, that this video helps you then capture some of the information that they discussed, and maybe pique your interest or plant some seeds on some of those topics. And as always, thanks for tuning in, y'all. It's been Justin G. Pluto with another podcast summary and recap. Go ahead, hit like, hit subscribe, help a brother out. I appreciate that a ton. And I've got a lot of pretty cool content planned. It's just going to be a work in progress. We're constantly elevating, improving, and growing. And that is absolutely my mission with this channel, is just to keep growing, keep getting better, producing higher quality content. I'm not so concerned about how much content I put together, but I want to put together the best content for y'all. So thanks for being here. Thanks for watching all the way till the end. And just like that, we out.